The man struck a match and lit the pile of wood. But then, something strange happened. A swarm of toads began leaping into the flames. Following his boss's instructions, the man swept all the toads into the fire. When the wood had burned to ashes, the boss and the toads vanished. Realizing he was now out of a job, the man fell into a deep, frustrated sleep. It turned out that the man's boss was a toad. It all began when the man, named Martin, was out looking for work. The toad approached him, offered him a job, and explained the duties. Martin figured it didn't matter who he worked for, so he agreed to stay. A year passed quickly, and the toad boss was pleased with Martin's work. He allowed Martin to pick out a set of clothes to take home. Martin carefully chose his favorite outfit and set off. On his way, he met his brothers under a large tree. When they learned Martin had been working for a toad, they burst out laughing. But their laughter turned to envy the moment they saw the fine clothes Martin was wearing. When it was time to leave for work again the following year, their father gave them a new task. This time, they were to bring home a bottle of wine. The brothers parted ways under the same tree, each setting off on their own path. The toad, however, seemed to know everything in advance. He was already waiting in the forest for Martin and offered him the job again. Another year flew by, and the toad boss, still satisfied with Martin's work, handed him a spoon and told him to pick out a bottle of his favorite wine from the cellar. When the brothers reunited under the tree, Martin was holding a single bottle of wine, while his brothers proudly pushed large barrels. As expected, they mocked Martin for his meager haul, but Martin didn't explain himself. Back at home, as his brothers showcased their barrels, Martin's bottle of wine never seemed to run out, no matter how much he poured. In the third year, the father gave them their most challenging task yet. Each son was to bring home a wife. Martin returned to the toad boss, who tripled his workload. Despite the increased demands, Martin worked diligently and without complaint. When the year ended, the toad boss had one final task for Martin. He instructed Martin to place him on top of a pile of wood and set it on fire. Though Martin begged the toad to reconsider, the boss insisted. Reluctantly, Martin lit the fire. The flames burned late into the night, and by morning, the toad boss and the other toads had disappeared. Heartbroken, Martin fell into a sorrowful sleep. But when he woke the next morning, he found himself in a soft bed, with a beautiful princess standing beside him. She explained that she had been the toad boss, cursed to live as a toad until she found an honest and obedient man to break the spell. Over time, she had grown to love Martin. Together, they rode home in a magnificent carriage. When Martin's brothers saw his new wife, they were consumed with jealousy. But Martin, ever the kind brother, gave each of them 3 bags of gold coins. Martin and the princess married, and he eventually became king. From then on, they lived a life of happiness and prosperity.